What if I block a bit of light?
I told you.
I think I should be here.
I think it's gonna fall.
Okay. Thomas, Dominique, Martin. So please be careful with the jacket thing there, because there's a iPad streaming, hopefully. So there's some sound. That's that. Okay. You guys are okay? So in your time, get back to your seats, and we're going to get started. So first of all, very welcome from Product Prague. Welcome from LMC. LMC is sponsoring the great snacks and drinks you have. LMC are the guys behind Laatste Lohan. We'll be covering Laatste Lohan.
I will go away.
During the talks as well. So thanks for LMC, thanks for this cool location. I think it's pretty awesome, it's quite fun. Jobs to be done. This is an atelier, so normally when there's no events here, people are painting, so look at the guys work as well. So,
I think like it's
who's here for the first time at a Product event? Whoa, that's almost half. So that's awesome. So that's probably means that, well, that means that you haven't seen the previous ones. Product Tech is a community of product managers, or product people, more to say, globally. It's organized by the guys behind Mind the Product, a conference that is in San Francisco and in London. Anyone of you attended Mind the Product? I did. Okay, just a few. I mean, check them out. A great conference and great content. They're organizing Product Tech. That means they're doing meetups worldwide. In Prague, when we started here, we were number 100 in the world. And in total, there's somewhere like 50,000 members there. So check them out, Product Tank and Mind the Product. Here in Prague, we have a chapter which is organized in sort of 3 streams. Unfortunately, Zdenek is somewhere in the mountains. Paolo is teaching product at VCR here, just around the corner. Hopefully he will attend. And me, Dave Ruzius, our product manager at Laatste Lohan at LMC. We have organized ourselves in 3 streams: organization, evolution, and innovation, because product is such a wide area. Evolution, how to become a better product manager. Organization, how to get product done properly in your company. Innovation in how to use, what tools to use, for example, jobs to be done for building better products, and how to innovate your product. So this is how we are organized. Jobs to be done tonight. Why jobs to be done? We kicked off in April last year in a cool location in Prague 7, and we did a sort of a survey amongst the people that were attending during the kickoff, about 70, 80, 90 people, and we asked them, what are the topics you want to see? In the innovation track, which I'm leading, there were 2 topics very high scoring. One was discovery, product discovery, and the second topic was jobs to be done. So finally, after April last year, I'm very happy that we organized a Jobs to be Done tonight. And it was quite hard to find people in Czech Republic who are actively practicing jobs to be done. And I'm very happy that there's actually people in the audience that say that they're using it as well. So I'm going to, for sure, get you on stage as well. Plus, of course, we're going to have our speakers. The agenda of the evening, we're going to start off with 2 presentations, 2.5 presentations by the guys here. One about the history, a bit of jobs to be done, where it came from, what is the current state, how much noise there is between the different ambassadors of jobs to be done. And after that, a very practical presentation of Thomas about the tools and about some projects Thomas has been working on using Jobs to be done. After that, we're going to have a break, and then we're going to do something called product therapy. Product therapy is something we invented where people from the audience bring their problem, almost like going to the shrink, like a product shrink, bring their problem, sit in a chair, and there will be at least 3 shrinks, and anyone from the audience trying to answer those questions. We're going to collect those questions using Slido, as I announced. So use the mobile web or use their app to drop your question and to start voting on other people's questions as well. Because the ones that come up highest, we'll try to cover them, and we'll continue as long as we need to cover those issues. Product therapy. So don't be an anonymous product manager or product person, but come forward and share your knowledge or share your problem, rather. After that, we'll still have food, hopefully, and we'll have some drinks, so we can continue here. So I want to start off with the introduction of the people, our 3 speakers of tonight, Dominik Michna, Tomasz Bartel, and Martin Čačky. And I want to ask them the question to get started, starting with probably Dominik. The question for you all, for you 3 guys, is introduce yourself, tell us what you do, what is your role, your function, and what Jobs to be done means for you in that context, in that particular context, in that function. So starting with Dominik.
Hi everyone, I'm Dominik and I'm from Seznam. I'm product designer. And Jobs to be done is for me another approach how to better understand customers and my users. Usually I, for example, integrate it to my interviews with my stakeholders when I need to know more about the project brief, and also it helps me better understand the competition for our product. And finally, Jobs itself helped me to define better how might be questions for ideation.
Martin.
Hi, I'm Martin. So my role is I'm a product manager, even though I'm a designer by heart. And I work at Seznam also. I used to work at Good Data. And what Jobs to be done mean for me? For me, it's a communication tool. It's a way how to frame problems and how to talk about problems that we wanna help our users or our customers solve.
Fair enough. And Tomasz.
Hello, I'm not a product person and I'm not from Seznam. I am an innovation designer. I'm from a company called Direct People, and we actually help companies such as Seznam or LMC to do better products. And for me, Jobs to be done is something that we started to do like 3 years ago, and I kind of was the first person doing it, so I got just stuck with it because like everyone is going to me to like help them with it, and that's maybe the reason why I'm here. For me, the Jobs to be done are like 2 things. It's a principle, basically, just a way how to think about the customers, and for me, it's helpful when I am with the clients who are not product managers. And I want to get them out of the talking about the product. It helps to do the right conversation. So that's the first thing. And the second thing for me, it's a tool that I use to do some quantitative reasoning behind opportunities, how to develop better products or new products. So these are like 2 separate streams I use Jobs to be done for. So that's everything for me.
Much. Hopefully in the presentations of Dominik, Martin and Tomasz, you will see how they actually use it in practice, and especially Tomasz when talking about his tools, you will see loads of them, so that should be awesome. Okay, thank you guys. First of all, Dominik and Martin to present a bit about the history of Jobs to be done, sort of a timeline, also Jobs to be done term, and see where we are now and try to make some order in the noise there is around Jobs to be done, because Google jobs to be done, and you will find 4 different people that claim that it's their idea and fighting between them. So Dominic will cover this, plus some real-life examples of Martin, how he applied some of the stuff. So we'll start with that. So put on your presentation. A comment. The guys are fine asking any questions like during or after that presentation. But if it's like real big topics you would like to discuss, or you think there's a real challenge or a real bigger topic for discussion, then please use Slido to drop that question, because we're going to have lots of time after the presentations to start discussing this in a sort of forum style. So small questions to clarify something the guys are saying, shoot immediately, raise your hand and the guys will pick, or afterwards. But the bigger topics, real conceptual problems, then keep them for Slido and product therapy, please. Where are we? The high-res. Okay. Sorry. That should be Dominic. Yeah. Thank you very much. Dominic, take it away.
Thank you. Okay. I try to explain and show a little bit from history of job to be done. When you dig deeper, you find out that it's a little bit close, but I try to bring a little order to it. I will present you these guys and their books they wrote. It's all about jobs to be done and some important milestones. At first, how many of you guys saw milkshake experiment on YouTube? Not much, okay? Milkshake marketing or experiment, it's basic YouTube video. When you Google it, you find this friendly guy. It's Harvard professor, Clayton Christensen, and in his articles and videos, he explained how they make marketing, milkshake marketing. He's better storyteller than me, so I recommend you to watch the video. But the experiment put the basics of jobs to be done theory. And that's about that people don't buy products because of product itself, but they hire products to make some job to be done. There is a first glitch. This guy didn't make the experiment. This guy on the left did. His name is Bob Moesto. He's an engineer, salesman, designer, now CEO. And in 1919, he came with Rick Petty, with a friend, to Clay Christensen. All because of his book, The Innovator's Dilemma. Christensen wrote this book in 1997, and in this book, he demonstrates how big and successful companies can lose their leadership even if they do nothing wrong, and can be beaten by smaller companies that started with more niche market but then get the leadership. Bob and Rick came to him because they wanted no solution for this dilemma. They presented to Christensen their work, their milkshake experiment, the basics of jobs to be done theory, and Christensen was very interested in it. In the same year, in 1999, Christensen also met this guy, Tony Ulrich. Tony also was interested in innovation process. He was fascinated by the popular phrase by Theodore Levitt. In 1962, he coined the phrase, "People don't want a quarter-inch drill, they want a quarter-inch hole." AKA, customers are not looking for a product, they are looking for a solution. Ulrich tried to apply a set of tools and techniques called Six Sigma to study the underlying process, how customers consume and buy products. He patented a lot of he patented his process. In 1996, he have about 12 patents, and he started his company Strategy and his process outcome-driven innovation. In 1999, he presented his outcome-driven innovation to Christensen. I found out that Ulrich was here in Czech in 2014 at Czech Innovation Festival. From this point, it started a little bit complicated because in 2003, Christensen wrote the innovator's solution. In his book, he loosely defined jobs to be done theory. He cited Rick Perry as the originator of the term jobs to be done, and he also cited Tony Ulrich. He presented him and his OD innovation as a very similar solution for jobs to be done. 2 years later, Tony Ulrich wrote his own book, What Customers Want. He described his own outcome-driven innovation. He integrated jobs to be done theory to his innovation process, and the basic is that all things are about one core functional job from his point of view. And customers, when they choose products, they have some metrics on which they trying to choose if it's worth to buy or not. And these metrics are highly can be quantifiable. Don't know. Sorry. In 2009, Bob Masta and his friend Chris Pike founded a company called Revite Group. The company was focused on solving hard innovation challenges, and they applying, of course, the jobs to be done theory. In 2014, they wrote their book Jobs to be Done, the handbook. It's 66 pages long, and they describe mainly the techniques how interview with customers. Because their main approach, from my point of view, is the qualitative, because they trying to focus on whole history of purchase of product. They trying to find out the events that influence you to start looking for new products, start actively looking for some products, which even influence you to buy new products. They use the tools forces diagram. It describes forces that influence you to the new product, to the new solution, and also forces that influence you bring back to the old solution. Timeline, as they describe it, it's for me a little bit similar to Koschnik's See, Think, Do, Care framework. And now we get to the present. In the same month, in October 2016, Tony wrote his own book, Jobs to be Done, Theory to Practice, where he described him as a true pioneer of jobs to be done, and that he has a lot of successful products behind him with high success rates, and his approach is really high scientific from my point of view, and he ties the outcomes that people have to the jobs to be done, and I think that he has more framework. It's a really step-by-step approach how to make innovation. He said that when you make this process, you find out which needs are underserved, which are overserved, and the innovation and the success is predictable from his point of view. I think that this framework can suit more to big companies that can risk much, and they try more incremental innovations. As I said, in the same month and in the same year, Christensen wrote another book, competing against luck. In this book, he explained the story of jobs to be done theory. He coined Bob Moesta as the main originator of jobs to be done. Also mentioned some of his colleagues, but no mention of Ulrich. His jobs to be done is really theory. It's a robust theory trying to explain why and how people buy products. It's all based on that when people choosing new products, they wanted to make some progress in their life. It's really highly emotional jobs in their theories. I think that his approach can suit more for startups when you are looking for new niche market where you can achieve bigger success. And this guy came to the scene, Alan Clement. When I tried to find something about him, there's not much. He said that he sold 2 businesses and became rich, but fans of Tony Ulrich accusing him from lying. They posted him screenshots from Wayback Machine of his LinkedIn, how he changed his LinkedIn and delete some companies and add some companies. Screenshots from his website, as he said that he's a photographer and so on. And there is no evidence of any companies that he should make and then sold. But he wrote his own book too, When Coffee and Kale Compete. In his book, he claiming that he is a true jobs to be done practitioner, and that only he and Bob Moesta and John Palmer and some friends know the truth. Also, he accusing Clayton Christensen that he's just talking and never applying jobs to be done, even if Clayton Christensen have his own consultancy company called Insight. And the biggest war is between him and Tony Ulrich. There's a lot of social media posts, Medium articles, Twitter tweets, and they just accusing the other one from lying. There is also 3 parody accounts which I found trying to accuse Alan from lying and bullshitting and that he don't know anything about jobs to be done. So, I shortly present you these few guys. I think that's worth reading, definitely competing against luck and jobs to be done to make you your mind about these approaches. But the truth is hard to tell. From my point of view, jobs to be done is really a marketing framework, and it's not so much different from others' framework from design. It's only another approach how to learn better about your customers and your users, and it's on you what will suit you best. Martin now show you some examples how to combine persons and jobs to be done. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Dominic. I think the only thing maybe what learns about the whole fight between people is that there is something that people care about. So I think it's an interesting topic because otherwise people will start fighting. I like the ideas about what method to use where. So check them out for yourself if you're more like a startup or more bigger company, and check out those books for yourself. I'm gonna put on the next part for Martin. Okay, Martin.
Thanks, Dave. Hi and welcome everybody. I would like to first ask you, who of you have used and have experience with personas? Can you stand up because it's cold and I want you to warm up a little bit? You just stand up. People who have experience with personas. Personas, cool. Can you guys who used Cooper personas, like the personas, not the marketing personas, but the personas defined by Cooper, stand up and the rest sit down? Cool, thank you. Now we can all sit down and we'll do the exercise once again with jobs to be done. So I would like to ask you, and we can stick by hands, just who of you have been using jobs to be done? Like in practice?
I got you guys on a list by name, so I will find you.
Nice. Can you take a picture and then kind of do the difference? No, it's cool. I just want to know, like what your background is and how deep I should go with the individual topics. It's really nice to see how many of you have used personas. That's cool. My talk is about, it should be really short, and I have already taken like half of the time. It's about my experience with personas and jobs to be done. It's nothing groundbreaking. It's an example from the old days back at Good Data when we started with personas, and then we kind of used also jobs to be done. And what I will try to answer is that if, from my point of view, personas and jobs to be done are nemesis, or if they can live in symbiosis. So we started back in the day. We started with Cooper personas. What we did. So by Cooper, persona is a model of a human behavior based on actual research. So on actual research with actual people, and you base the persona on their attitudes, skills, and needs, and you basically segment the users or the people you interview. You segment them, and then from each of this segment you create a persona. You give it a real name. You try to make it real because you want to use it as a empathy tool, and you wanna use it to explain to your team who your users are or who your customers are. Here you see a lady that gives you the surf sign. I kind of covered this. It's based on skills, needs, and attitudes. So you interview. It's really blank, but you have these axes where you have like attitude, let's say negative, positive towards a certain thing. Then you have like how much time you spend on a certain activity, a lot or small time, etc. Then you have skills, and then you map the people you interviewed, and you try to find segments, which is basically you are looking for patterns in their needs and behaviors and skills, and you create like fictional users or personas out of it. So we did this. Good Data is a company that basically helps people to make business decisions based on their business data. That's kind of their mission. I saw a couple of Good Data guys here, so guys, forgive if I'm not up to date on the latest vision. So we define these three personas. You can see Joe, which is like VP of sales. That's like the top manager. Short attention span, always on his mobile phone, always on the go. Needs to make decision in a split second, but needs to make them informed by the data and informed by actual status of his business. Then any marketing analyst, she basically serves multiple people, and mainly this guy, this VP sales. She prepares the analysis for him, so he can just quickly digest it and make a decision. He doesn't have time to dive into the data and make regression analysis, scatter plots, and whatnot. He has her to do that. And then the third persona we had was Ben, a support manager. Ben was running a support team, 10 agents that he need to plan shifts for. He need to look for how many support tickets are coming in, how many support tickets they are able to close, and he needs to be able to predict the volume of the tickets so he can scale his team, or let's say make instead of one shift, make it two shift support team, etc., etc. But he did not have the privilege to have his own analyst, so he was kind of on his own for most of the things, right? But he had the same motivation. He needed to run his business, he needed to run his team, he needed to make the decision based on the data, based on the information. So the personas in this helped us to understand what roles were involved in the system, because the business intelligence platform we were creating, Good Data was creating, was quite a complex system, complex in a way that it helped multiple people in the business to run their business and make their decisions. So it helped us to understand what the different roles and different people in the companies were, and how they were thinking, what their needs, what their attitudes, what were their skills. And also, it helped us to understand how the different people in the different roles interacted, how they communicated and depended on each other, and also how they overlapped. So it brought kind of the personal attitude towards like the users. It didn't make the goals like abstract, because they were tied to a certain person in a certain role in a certain situation. And later on, I'm not sure, it was like 2012, 2011, not sure, we learned about jobs to be done, and we experimented with that. And what we did was we actually used the job story format, which is pretty simple. It it helps you to define a person's need based on a situation that he's in, based on an expected outcome he's seeking, and based on the motivation why he's actually seeking the expected outcome. That's kind of actually Intercom is popularizing this way of structuring a job to be done. And so we use these. I'll read out an example of a job story for you from the Joe persona. And let me do the first one, checking status of my business. So a couple times a week, Joe wants to check the status of his business to see what's running well and what is not running well, so we can possibly take action to improve the situation and minimize the probability of a negative impact of not doing anything. And also, there is in play the emotional aspect, which is he wants to reassure himself that everything's running well. He does not want to wait for him to, let's say, somebody tell him that something's wrong, but he wants to constantly checking that everything's all right, that he's on top of things. And so we defined, I think it was like six job stories for Joe, and then we also defined job stories for the other personas. Here it's just shortcuts like of names of the jobs, not the whole job story format. But for Joe, it was like checking status of my business, get notified if something goes wrong, understand if an irregularity takes place. If something's out of normal, I want to know why that is. If it's good or bad, doesn't matter. I want to understand the underlying rule, etc., etc. And for Joe, and then for Annie, I'll pick out, let's say, two. She wants to set up business monitoring. So if I'm an analyst and I'm working for a VP guy, he would ask me that he wants a dashboard that gives him let's say a weekly overview of his business, so he can come back and can check it without the need to contact me and for me to repeat, let's say, by email. So he wants to have it set up so we can come back to that. Which, for any the analyst, it means a job of, I need to be able to set up a business monitoring. And I'll pick one more and then answer someone else's question. The analyst was usually in a mode that he would kind of proactively set up the business monitoring so the business managers can be self-service. But there would be questions that cannot be answered by the standard dashboard. So she would be contacted by different managers with different questions, and she would need to quickly and effectively come up with an answer and give it back to them. So there was a real interaction a real-time interaction between Joe and Annie. And then we had Ben, and if you read it already, you can see that basically Ben is a combination of both of these, right? You can either read it or you can believe me. It's basically, there is nothing in Ben that wouldn't be in Joe and Annie. And that's all right, actually. It's not bad, right? There are different people with different motivations, but they share the jobs that need to get done. That's actually the overlaps marks of everything, and it actually helped us to move the focus from the actual people that we already kind of knew because they were the same all the time, and helped us to focus on the individual goals. So basically, a person is in a point B and they want to in a point A and they want to get to a point B, and it helped us to focus on that. So kind of to understand the situation they are in, the goal they are trying to achieve, and the motivation why they are trying to do that. Already went through that. And last but not least, and I think this was the biggest revelation, it helped us to forget about the roles, to be able to think out of the box, and kind of to eliminate the analyst in some cases. If we focused on a persona in a certain role, we would be thinking about how to make their lives better. But actually, when we wanted to make the situation for the whole company, for the customer better, we wanted to eliminate any actually. We wanted to eliminate the need of an analyst, and we wanted to make the Joe and Ben as self-service as possible. And it actually reminded me of a situation that was back in the day when, I'm not sure how many of you remember Alta Vista, but this directory, automotive, business and finance, computers, health, people, chat, reference, education, shopping, etc., this categorization was pretty crucial. If you categorized, or more likely a guy that you hired, your administrator, categorized the site well, people could find it. So there was a person needed to set up the whole thing so users looking for shopping malls would find your shopping mall. There was a person needed. And then, I guess all of you guessed, the need of that administrative task, of that categorization, of that setup was eliminated. Because the job to be done was not to correctly categorize a website, but the job to be done was help people or help me to find a business I'm looking for. And that's actually it.
Okay. Martin, the question, do you know, or did you leave Good Data before that, the guy stopped using personas as a result of this, or is it now sort of used in conjunction together with jobs to be done, or do you think it's time to get rid of personas at all?
To your first question, actually, I don't know. good data still uses personas or not. And honestly, I don't think you should get rid of personas or get rid of jobs to be done. It both serves a certain need. If you're kind of starting and you're looking at the world how it is now, you want to map it and you want to understand what people are there, what roles they are, what skills and attitudes they have. And I think it's crucial to understand that. More so in a business where you are selling to businesses that have their people in their roles and kind of are set up and are used to that setup. You need to understand that. But then once you wanna start changing the world and start changing maybe the system they are used to, you want to kind of move a little bit away from that and kind of concentrate on the jobs to be done and the motivations. I think you need both.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, no hand I quickly checked, and there's only including my question at the moment 3 questions on Slido. So I expected, for example, already a question popping up after Dominique, like why jobs to be done is different than human-centered design, for example. I mean, if somebody has it in their head, then drop it in Slido as a question. Like, okay, maybe some other topics regarding personas and jobs to be done. Drop those questions and we can discuss them afterwards. The guys are here, so I'll continue. I like this sort of matrix between like personas and jobs to be done. It's a nice discovery method, I think. But there is a big discussion between personas, users, and jobs to be done. So, okay. Hopefully, this should be the.
Actually, if I can add one more thing.
Please do.
I actually wanted to start my presentation with that. If you look, it doesn't matter. If you actually look up articles about job stories and jobs to be done, like the core introductory articles about jobs to be done, most of them start by that personas are doomed and that nobody decides to buy Snickers based on that he's 35. And I think this is a reaction to the state of to the state of the world, where most people are, when they say personas, they are referring to personas that are defined as a woman 35 with 2 kids with university education. So basically personas based on socio-demographic attributes rather than our attitudes, needs, and skills. And kind of jobs to be done started to market itself, basically denying the personas. But the denial is of the marketing personas, not of the Cooper personas, because I think Dominic mentioned it already, Cooper personas and jobs to be done are so close to each other that maybe even jobs to be done people do not want to know that.
Thank you for that. Okay, so we're going to continue. I'm going to give the word to Tomasz. As I said, very much about practice, existing projects, and lots about tools. And the interesting stuff that Tomasz almost invented, I think, and how he adjusted jobs to be done. So, not up to me, up to Tomasz. Sorry.
I was sorry to disappoint you, but okay. So thank you. Just for the beginning, we're not speaking any Czech here. Just a question at the beginning. Okay, that's not bad. Just a quick introduction. I first created it in English, then translated to Czech, and then translated it to English. So there can be some things lost in translation. So sorry about that. So just to be done in practice. Just first introduction about what we do and where I'm from. As I mentioned at the beginning, we are innovation consultancy here in Prague, And what we are actually doing, we are trying to help our customers to build better products and services. And where we start, we usually use something called human-centric design or design thinking, another buzzword as jobs to be done. And what happens at the beginning, we usually get something like this. This is something that we have on the wall, and these are all some insights about the customers and users and so on. And the issue we had, why we started talking about jobs to be done, was that it was kind of hard to decide where to focus. Because what usually happened, as we work with the clients, they don't want to lose anything, so they want to focus on everything. And it doesn't work like that. So at first, the jobs to be done started to be a tool to help us pick the things that are kind of the most important to focus at first, and maybe have the rest somewhere in the second row, and we can come to it later, but have this focus. So that's the main start of talking about jobs to be done. So we started thinking, okay, how to use it. So first thing we did, we bought books. I had to read the books, so you don't have to, because they are horrible, I think. I don't know if you like the Ulrich, but I think he says the most important thing in the first 5 pages, and then the rest is kind of repeating it all again and again. So I don't know how is your, maybe I had just bad mood when I was reading it, but I really didn't like the book. So we said, okay, it's nice. There are some nice things on the first 5 pages, so let's try it. So we started experimenting with it, and we have like this process. It's not something that we have it like in some nice PDF or something. It's just like few slides in some PowerPoint that we use to like walk us through how to do it. And basically, majority of the things I do myself, and if someone wants it, he comes to me and I do it. So it's not like formalized or something. So I don't have any Facebook page where I just like promote jobs to be done. So, what Dave asked, he wanted to show examples. So when you will see blue boxes, I will be throwing at you some examples. If you want to ask questions, just ask questions about them. Unfortunately, some of the examples are kind of, the content is in Czech. I tried to do like quick English translation, so we can talk about it if you will understand. So let's start. At the beginning, when we usually meet with the client, there are like 3 main questions we get into. First is, what is the goal? So what do you want? You want to have improved current service, new service or something, so what it should do. When we talk about jobs to be done, we start talking, because usually as we work, we want to do the projects with the client. And quite often, they are not the people who are like project managers or people who are used to it. It can be like IT managers or risk managers or finance directors, people who will not find like people who will do empathies and so on. So at the beginning, we ask them, do you want to be part of the jobs to be done interviews? They usually say yes, but I don't want to do the interview, so we say fine. If not, it never happened, we will do a training, but we have a possibility about that. Then we will start talking about the respondents, because as I mentioned, quite big issue was how to get some quantity. And especially as some of our projects, and they can probably tell about this, is about B2B. It's kind of hard to find the numbers to actually do the jobs to be done analysis if you have to get B2B people to fill some questionnaire. So at the beginning, we now started talking about how we will get them, we will have some motivation for them and so on. Then maybe it's kind of cut it out, but hopefully you can read it. Then we start talking if it's about, do you want to find new jobs that you could focus on in your company, or are we just describing a job that you are already solving with your product or service? And here sometimes starts the discussion, because we have basically to explain it to the customer, what does it mean. So if you, for example, look at the last bullet point, so what do you think was the product that we started to analyze with jobs to be done? If you look at have at disposal something that you cannot afford, what was the product, original product that we started to analyze? Any idea? Yeah. Any mistakes or no? It was a loan. That's something that's loan if you get in a bank. So we started like talking. Okay, you don't get a loan. You just want to get something that you can't afford right now, and maybe you can buy it, but you can also rent it and just use it. So we really had this quite long discussion with the client. What's actually the job that their product is trying to solve? Sometimes we go quite wide. Sometimes we narrow it a bit. That's maybe the middle example, which is LMC, where we had a similar discussion. We basically said, okay, if you are a company, is your job to hire a person, or is your job to get the job done? And maybe you can get the job done a different way than hiring the person. You can hire just an external help, you can hire another company. So there was like this discussion, and then we said, okay, we don't want to have something this wide, because it would complicate things too much. We just want to go with this concrete job, which is narrower. So we always have this discussion where to focus. And the other thing that we talk about is where we actually start and where we actually end, because you can kind of go, the process can be quite long, so we usually decide, okay, here we talked about the process of hiring a person, so we started, okay, we will start where someone realized, okay, I need a new guy in the company, and we will end when the trial period of the person after the first 3 months will end. And that's the process that we will start to analyze. Another thing that we start talking about, probably nothing that unexpected, about target groups and about some segments that usually the client has. For example, in the LMC example, it was, okay, we said what kind of companies usually hire someone. Like big groups are white collar workers, people from manufacturing, IT guys, and then retail, and then we just segmented it by number of employees, and we had this like 12 segments, and we said, okay, let's find a person from each segment and talk with that person. And that was the discussion we had at the beginning, and that is how we started. What also we wanted to have some extreme companies. So, for example, we talked with a guy with car repair shop somewhere on the outskirts of Prague, who was like totally not HR manager, but we just wanted to see how the problem looks from his point of view. And the next day we talked with a hiring manager from a big bank in Prague. So we really had this like totally different people. And what we do before we even start talking with the customers usually, we like to throw something at the client. So we let him, okay, what do you think how the process actually looks from your point of view? We might do a workshop where we just create some preliminary job map by talking with the customer or with the client. We might do a few test interviews to just make some first changes. And what we do some translation from client's language to human language, I would say. So, and also what we can kind of, one of the first things that we can do, because like if you follow the book, you would have to use something like, they have like this,
Minimized probability.
yeah, minimized probability or something. And I don't know if you would like to answer questionnaire like this, but it would probably be totally horrible, and you would get fed up with it after like 5 questions like this. So we, after like trying it like for 4 or 5 desired outcomes, we totally like ditch this. It's impossible to use, and just like try to rephrase it to like human language, maybe losing some exact meaning, but to make it more bearable. Here are maybe some examples how it looks like. Now it gets to the blue boxes. So we get from the client something like approve headcount, which is more client speak, I would say. And then we started like, what are the outcomes that we might analyze? So we said, okay, we actually have to like discover that there is a need. We have to approve the position. And we just started like putting the first ideas about how we could define it with the desired outcomes from to be done. For that, we have like this simple Excel table. You will see lots of Excel tables. Sorry for the guys from Good Data. That's what we use. We just use Excel. So
it's actually our biggest competitor, or
yeah.
Good Data's biggest.
Yeah, after every range tool. So, and then we go to interviews. There are basically two ways how to handle them. The first is that we do our normal design thinking project, and based on the outcomes of it, we create basically the jobs to be done process with all the desired outcomes and everything. Or we do just the interviews focused just on the jobs to be done. And I will talk just on if we just do the interviews for the purpose of doing the jobs to be done analysis. We have some script like this. This is another competitor from it's Word, so nice tool also. And so basically, the structure of the interview is like this: that we at the beginning, what you usually do with every interview, we just like say what's the purpose of the meeting, what we are trying to achieve, say basic understanding what we know about the person and how he is and how his life looks like. We usually try to give him some question to like understand how he actually understands the job. For example, if we talk about the finding a job, we said, okay, how do you define ideal work or something like that, so we can start talking. And then we start, okay, if you would like to start to find ideal work, how would you go about it? And we try to let him explain to us the process of finding work. And what usually happens that the person actually misses like 2/3 of all the phases in the process that we thought about. So we said, okay, that's nice. And what happens between these two things that you were saying? Do you deal with something? Sometimes people can remember about it, sometimes not. But we try to like fill these gaps that the person didn't think about. If he doesn't like things about these gaps, we just like leave them out and don't use them anymore. If yes, we just use them. And then when we have these big phases, we just start filling them with these desired outcomes. And it's kind of quite mechanical, I would say. So to make it at least a bit more playful, we started using something like cards. That we have cards which are like A6 or A7. From one side, you have the face, how we name it, with some simple explanation. And from the other side, we have some desired outcomes. And we just first let people define them themselves, then we check if our definition they understand or not, and after that we turn it around and start talking about what they want to actually achieve by this phase or something like that. Sometimes it works, sometimes less. There are people who are like more organized, and people who are not, then they have a bit of issue with it. Maybe this is the question for you, if you have like better way how to do it. We don't right now, but usually we kind of are able to get the process together. Also, how we record all the things from this questioning or interview. If we do like design thinking projects, we usually just write the normal text and notes and no structure. But when we try to do it with jobs to be done, it's a total nightmare to do some structure afterwards. So we basically just use something like, which looks like this. This is like another table where we just write information about what the people are saying. First we write what they said without any guidance, and then we say, when we show them our idea how to define the face or define something, how they actually understood it, and then we check if it's something that kind of is understandable by everyone. So, and then we put it all together and create something like a final job map. What usually happens is that we have too many phases and too many desired outcomes. I know that the Urbegos say that you can have like 200 of them, but I don't know if you have ever tried to fill a questionnaire with 200 questions times 2, because you have to basically ask about importance and satisfaction. So what we do, we usually during the interview try to kind of judge whether there is some importance in the phase or something, or the outcome, and if 9 out of 10 people say, I don't care, we don't ask in quantitative questionnaire, because we feel that if you would ask with 200 people, maybe some will find it important, but it's not worth putting this long questionnaire on everyone. So after that, we usually end up with something like, we have, let's say, about 100 outcomes, and then we end up with like half after some discussion. Also, we do some rephrasing, because I think that the nice example from if you talk with a guy from a bank, and then if you talk with a guy from car repair service, it can be totally different phrasing, but the meaning can be the same. So we had met this nice guy from this small car shop, and he said, okay, do you want to have like a gender equality and blah, blah, blah? And he said, okay, yeah, I will have 2 boobs, then 1 cock. And that's, okay, then we have to translate it to something which is relatable both for the bank, and both will be understandable by a guy from a small car shop. So we said, okay, let's make something having both men and women in the team, and that's something that both can understand. And it's not something that's totally not applicable to a bank environment, I would say. So then we have this nice job map, and then we go for quantity. Maybe do you have any question? Just show them, and I can answer them. Maybe if I'm running too fast, or if you want to translate something but you can't see anything, just ask questions. Yes.
Can you explain a bit more about like satisfaction and importance
Yes.
and satisfaction?
And what do you want to explain?
When defining those phases and starting to
Yeah.
write them down, capture them, how that will finally lead to you'll get there.
Yeah, I will actually get there, but at the point of having the interviews, we don't ask these questions. We just ask, okay, do you find this outcome important or something like that? But we don't like check both of these, like importance and satisfaction, just to have some indication if we should include it in the final questionnaire or not. But we don't want to make the interviewing even longer. Just for the information, the interview usually takes like 1.5 hours. So I think it's like the maximum that the person can actually stay alive and responding. So, okay, so what happens next? We say, okay, let's test it. As I mentioned, the biggest issue we have right now is usually get people to answer the questions, because if you imagine that you throw at them like 100 questions you want to answer, people will get kind of tired after a few of these questions. So what we kind of look for is to have at least 200 respondents. We also try to do some segmentation in B2C. So for that we need at least like 800. We also usually try to throw at them some motivation. We tried gifts, we will share with you the results, you will make the world a better place. Sometimes it works, sometimes less, and I think that's the biggest issue, to make it like more fun and actually interesting for the people filling the questionnaire, because that's something that we are kind of fighting with. Usually what comes at this moment, some copywriter, both it can be from our company or from the clients. What we try to avoid the copywriter to touching the questions about the site outcomes too much, because he will try to make it maybe nicer, but he will usually lose some important things that we actually wanted there. We also try to make it at least a bit visual, so it's not like just the radio buttons and long lists of questions. We usually do what you would usually do. You would do actual testing, that we just send it to 10% of the respondents and see if actually everything is okay. We then call them and see if they understood it and if there are some like problems. And especially if we do B2B, we check if the people opened it, stopped filling it after like five questions, and if so, we try to call them and find out if we can kind of help them or push them to fill the whole thing. The questionnaire has kind of this structure we use right now. At the beginning, some explanation. What we try to do to at least make it a bit shorter. We like present them the phases and say, okay, which of the phases you don't care about, and we just don't show the desired outcomes from the phases. So we make it shorter this way. That's one way how we maybe make it more bearable. Then we just throw at them this desired outcomes questions, which are not using this horrible maximizing something or minimizing something else. But still, it's kind of difficult, I think, questionnaire. And at the end, if the person survives, we throw some extra questions, which are usually not that important. Usually something that you mentioned with the personas. We usually ask for something like social demographics information and some kind of solution they use, for example, or competition and so on, so we can kind of get a feeling. Here is an example how one of the questions actually looked at one of the questionnaire we used. You can see that we use like 5-point Likert scale. How is the thing in blue important for you, and how are you satisfied with actually achieving this criterion in your company or at your life or something like that. After we get all the questionnaires, sometimes we let the collection of the questionnaires on some research company who gives us some presentation which we throw away because we don't need that. We usually just get the Excel again and just do the counting. I try to show the Excel how the counting actually works. It's this simple thing that we use. I created. Hopefully it's correct because I'm copying it all the time. So that's actually a thing that's bad about Excel, that mistakes can happen. So usually what I do is I just like prepare everything, and then I have to do some double checks to see if all the how do you call it? I don't know. You know formulas. You know our work. So This is something how the actually data set looks like. Nothing fancy, simple Excel, and this is what the result looks like. What we usually give the client, the end result, is basically you have all the phases. Which in each phase you have some desired outcomes, and with each desired outcome you have what's the importance and what's the satisfaction, and then this formula which counts the opportunity. And that's something that we work with. We usually don't like to just give this. We try to look behind the data and see what actually the real people told us about this criteria or these desired outcomes, and based on that, kind of group them to similar themes or topics that we can make more easy to work with. So that's something how we do it. Any questions? I'm sorry that it was all the tables, but that's basically what is it about. It's just asking questions and doing a table. So it's kind of maybe boring, but at the end you get some number. That's everything you get. So, but the creative work starts after that. I have maybe 2 examples which are based on some jobs to be done approach or thinking. Most of them is something that we worked with Dave here. And it's this mobile app work around the corner. And basically, one of the desired outcomes was, if I would phrase it in English, it's something I would to minimize the time I commute every day to work, or something like that. And quite lots of people find this very important. And if you look at the statistics, lots of people are actually commuting to work longer than 30 minutes or 1 hour every day, and in one direction, and the same time the other direction. And then we start digging into it more. So we did some questionnaires, and we asked about, so let's say that if you had another job which would be closer to work, closer to your home, how much money you would actually sacrifice to get this job. And quite lots of people would say, I'd rather work next door and get lower salary than to travel each day 1 hour, 2 hours to work. So we said, okay, there's some value that can be done, and we basically started working on this job portal, which is focusing on just this one outcome. And I think that's kind of good thing about jobs to be done, because what can happen if you would do just the interviews, you would probably find many insights and many interesting things that they care about, and you would focus on too many things. And this was, okay, we have like this one strong outcome that they want, they are not satisfied with, and you just focus on that one, and basically forget about everything else. And I think this is, for me, the main reason why to use it.
Maybe I can tell you something about what it means.
Being the product manager of this, and actually now, I came later actually, the history of jobs to be done and the research that was done for this product I was not part of initially, later on. But I can tell you a bit what it means for product. It's also one of the questions I see now on Slido, so please keep putting your question on Slido, is what has jobs to be done? What is the impact it has on the final product? Like, does it make the product finally a better product or a worse product? In case of Plaats OM, like jobs around the corner, I think it's very interesting because it made it a very simple product. If, like Thomas says, if you would follow all the insights you would get from the interviews, you would end up with a full-blown, massive job search mobile application that can do everything and nothing. And typically our competition. Like if you would look, for example, in the Polish market and also in the Czech market at the competition, there's typical job search applications. They do all the stuff you expect them to do, and it's a lot, and they're not very popular. Our application, based on the research that was done and based on that insight that people want to stop commuting, does one thing very well, which is tell me where you are, and I will show you jobs near home and I will even tell you the salary, so you can make that choice if you want to work there or not. So it's a very simple application, so it's missing a lot of features if you would look at the pure competition that says, okay, we have everything. But people understand it because it matches their expected outcome. It matches that expected outcome that they can find a job closer to home. So it resonates with them. They like it. I mean, we have super ratings for the application. Plus, and I think Jobs to be Done is also a marketing tool. Marketing works perfect if you have such a strong single definition of what your app is or your service is and what it is not. Because you can communicate it easily. You can talk to people easily. People understand it immediately. The right people, actually the right people, the people for your product you are trying to target. So I think it made Praat Zerohem definitely a more simple product, a much better product, easier marketable product. And I think the reason we're now expanding to Poland, the reason why it is adopted so fast in Poland, and people tell us, is because it's so simple and comes from a clear insight and a clear desired outcome for this one application. So this is the typical discussion in product, like, should you make one thing and do it right, or should you make everything and try and make it shit? I think Jobs to be Done helps there to find that particular one thing or a few things you would try to solve. So that's from my perspective as product manager of that product that came from that research. So if you have any questions, then let me know, Marco.
So if you make a product that is so single-minded, don't you then also run the risk that it's easily copied?
Yeah, just do it great and do it fast, and yes it is. But it's a risk. Typically, it's a risk doing it so minimalistic, because typically the competition thinks that they will beat you by doing more of it, and they will not go for the same minimum but even better. I mean, you have to do that absolute minimum very, very well, and I think we did it very well. So, but yeah, you can copy it, of course. But yeah, you will start communicating the same language, and you will have the same marketing strategy and stuff like that. So it will be confusing and doesn't help anyone, I think.
All right.
I think it's just taking a bit of risk. Any other questions?
Question: how long the whole research took? Like,
In this particular case?
or generally,
Like in general, it's really like the thing that makes it longer is if you have a problem getting the respondents. So if you have the respondents, I think that you can get the whole research in like 2 weeks with the interviews, then the questionnaire. During the afternoon, I can do the evaluation, and it's quite fast. And that's something that I like about this approach actually, because I get to it later. I don't want to like sell it as a research product or something. We are not a research agency, and I just want to use it as a part of some design project. And when we get the insights, we have lots of them, and we want to get the focus. Okay, what are the 3, 4, 5 things that we want to get done best as we can? I want to do this, and I want to have it fast, so the people in the team are still full of the empathies. They are in the project, and they are not waiting like 2 months for some results. So like 2 weeks, if it goes well, it's no problem. Any other questions? When we have the questions? Yes?
Was there any other outcome except this one?
From this? Yeah, there were like actually like 2 other products that came out of the empathies and the research. And so yeah, that's just like one of the strong insights, and we said, okay, let's make one product about this insight, and we had other insights, and we created other products. Some of them are like some like process behind the Jobs to be Done. There are some in prototyping and so on, but certainly there were more things. Sorry? Yes.
Maybe on a very high level, where this came from was actually it's a Czech product. Where this came from and why we started the research initially as LMC was that we have unemployment rate of 5.something% in Czech Republic. The people that are not employed at the moment, they are probably not very employable. So to make a job search service for people that are already employed, that doesn't make sense. So the big question was like, how can we start mobilizing existing workers, people that are in a job? How can we mobilize them? How can we activate what we call passive job seekers? So people that have a job, they don't need to change, but how can we make them change anyway? And that's where the research started, and that led, that's very interesting as well, that led to 3 potential products solving the same high-level desired outcome. So theoretically we would compete with Atmoscope because it would, check it out, it's a different product for professional network, but serving the same purpose. So the original question, as I said, was how to motivate or how to mobilize people that are in a job. And based on all the research and all the questions, this was one of the potential ways how to do it. And LMC, based on the numbers, decided that this is a big opportunity and we'll try and go for it. And we are successful doing it. So, does that answer your question? Okay. So, and this is a new product development using jobs to be done. And I think Thomas is a good example of like modifying an existing product.
Okay, just a question. How much time do I have?
Till it's finished.
Okay, so sorry. Okay, so I think like quite often what you think about when you talk about jobs to be done. Okay, what are the things that are important and not satisfied? But I kind of kept thinking, okay, what was the project where we had like the opposite basically outcome? Then we find some jobs that are kind of overserved and no one cares about. And one of the utility companies we did jobs to be done analysis came to my mind. Basically, if I ask here, you have probably some electricity from someone. Do you have also from that company a cell phone, or do you have insurance or something, some other service from the utility company? Anyone has anything else from utility company? No, no one. Yeah, that's something, because like all the utility companies wants to like throw lots of services additionally for the energy, and basically what came out of this research was that no one cares. Like people really hate it. It just like dilutes everything and so on. So we had like this quite big discussion with the management of the energy company and how we can actually ditch all these extra things that they were doing or thinking about. And we basically started like removing everything what was unnecessary based on the research. And we started like to make it as simple as possible, remove all the decisions that you would have to make, because no one wants to make decisions about energy. Basically, that's the result of the research. So we wanted to make it as unnecessary to make any decisions. For example, lots of energy companies will ask you, do you want to sign this paper and get it a bit cheaper, but you will have to stay with us for 2 years. Or you can have it more expensive and not stay. And this is a decision that we didn't want to let people make. So we just said, okay, we will not make you have this decision, but we will give you some benefit if you actually stay 2 years. So we just like removed all the decision making from the process of getting the energy. And that's something that's kind of evolved from making the product to making the value proposition of the whole brand. We actually helped to start the rebranding of the company, and it's something that will still take some time to actually deliver, but it actually started with jobs to be done research at the design project we had like 2 years ago or a year ago or something like that. So that's another example, and a few more things. Also, what I was also already mentioning, the question I get is if it should be sold as a research project, or as a research company should sell it, or if it's like a part of some bigger project. For me, as I said, it's a bigger project because I think it's quite complicated to just explain it and just throw some presentation on someone and say, okay, just use it. It doesn't work like that. People have to go through the empathies and the research to really like understand what's behind it, or I think it will not work. That's one point I take out of this. And some issues we came to during trying to use it, where it doesn't work or has some issues. When I get back to the utility company, it's kind of hard to do jobs to be done with the subjects which are kind of infrequently used, or you do just automatically, and it's really hard for people to talk about them. Another thing is, I think that it doesn't work with emotional jobs or something like that. I think that you can't make a movie based on jobs to be done. It doesn't work. I know that Ulrich has some ideas, some emotional, social jobs and everything, but I think it doesn't work because you can maybe create some desired outcome, but it will be so different for each person will understand it totally differently. So I think it doesn't have the meaning that you need for actually designing something. And another issue we have, as I told you about this strict way how to define the outcomes, with this minimize something or maximize something and so on. So you always fight, have it exact, but maybe compare some language, have it long, or have it something that flows more naturally, but maybe it's not that strictly saying what you want to say. Then other thing that I already mentioned, the length of the questionnaire really sucks, and we don't know what to do about it. That's probably one of the issues. And also Ulrich says that there is like a limited number of outcomes that you can get out of the people, and you can get it, and I don't think that you can get it actually. I don't think that people will actually tell you what are all the outcomes they desire, even though that they have them. And I think that there is maybe some way how to do it. I have seen some nice talk about repertory grids, which is some methodology how to find latent needs or something. But I think this is something that just doesn't work right now that well. So thanks.
Okay, Thomas, thank you very much. I think everybody is now ready for like a drink and some food. Let me go back. Okay. So product therapy. I explained it quickly in the beginning. So don't leave after the break. So this is your moment to drop your problems, your questions, and get them answered by the speakers here, plus the people in the audience. And especially those people that indicated that they have experience with jobs to be done, because I would like to hear their voices for sure, especially if it comes to effects on products, the outcomes, successes, failures. So use Slido, use the hashtag, and after the break, say 15 minutes, we'll continue with product therapy. So thank you very much.
I'll send it up. Want me to see my No? Thank you.
Thank you.